Helldivers 2 is a team-based, objective-focused live service shooter and is one of my favourite games released in recent years. In fact, it would have been my game of the year last year had Space Marine 2 not come along and done a last-minute clutch. Now, I used similar words to describe Ready or Not when I did a video on that game, but worry not, as this game is not as serious.
Ready to go.
Okay. Originally, I wrote a script for Helldivers all the way back last year when this game first came out. Would have predated my Dishonored video. Why didn't I finish it? Oh no, I guess I'm just lazy. Now recently you may have heard that this game had a massive narrative event, so big that it even made the news in China. And this event inspired me to hop back into the game, which led to me making this video. I'm just gonna slip this into the script. If you enjoy, then like and subscribe. It's within my best interests. Helldivers 2 is set in humanity's far future, and Earth has been unified under a fascist military dictatorship. Earth has been unified under a free and fair managed democracy government, and now humanity looks to the stars for its next steps. However, we are not alone in the galaxy. 3 alien factions have taken up residency in our God-given galaxy, and so to evict these squatters, humanity deploys the Helldivers, an elite fighting force armed with unlimited airstrikes, with which we will use to push out the alien menace, as those planets are ours to exploit. Guys, do you hear that? The Earth itself is speaking to me. And it's telling me to commit suicide. It's telling me to commit genocide. Welcome to your Super Destroyer, your personal starship. At least until you get slaughtered, then they just grab another Helldiver out of the freezer and send him/her to his/her death. The true horror of being a Helldiver is being frozen for potentially years just to be killed 5 minutes after waking up. Could you imagine becoming a Helldiver at the beginning of the war, being frozen and then getting woken up now to find out that the Squids have returned? They've invaded Earth and the Helldivers are now using suicide vests and bomb collars. There should be an explosion soon. You get to customize the name of your ship by combining 2 pre-selected options. You can name your ship something cringe like the Magistrate of Democracy or the Guardian of Family Values, or you can name it something badass like the Fist of Peace. The Destroyer is how we call in support during missions, whether that be orbital bombardments, calling in bombing runs from Eagle 1, or delivering support weapons like the recoilless rifle and the exosuits. The game lets you pick what stratagems you want to use in the loadout screen before every mission. Probably shouldn't, I mean it's a small area, so you shouldn't be smart about what you bring.
God.
We talked about the weapons, but who exactly are we using them on? Who are these aliens that need fisting? They must be something if each Helldiver is granted the budget of a small nation's military.
But freedom doesn't come free. No! Sweet liberty! No!
First on the chopping block are the Terminids. The Terminids are an invasive species of bugs that have overrun the eastern side of the galaxy. You may notice that the eastern edges of the galaxy are obscured by this dense yellow cloud. This is the gloom, and it's actually the spores that the Terminids use to spread from planet to planet, meaning that the bulk of their forces reside inside this cloud. So who knows what horrors we will face if and when we enter this region of the galaxy. Their ability to overrun entire planets this way is reflected in their gameplay. Most bugs are melee focused, relying on their sheer numbers to overwhelm Helldivers. Also, the bugs are fascist. This was decided by us, as we are experts on the matter. If I was to pick a real life equivalent for the Terminids, I would say that fighting them is like the Emu War of 1932, where Australia attempted to cull the emu population, which was growing out of control, which was affecting farmers across the country. You probably know that the emus won that war. Obviously the Australians weren't locked in because they didn't use the optimal strat of napalm strikes.
So your character's screaming.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Should we take cover? No, idiot. That is not even gonna hit us.
The second alien faction are the automatons, and I'm just gonna say it, this is my favourite enemy to fight in this game. It feels like an actual bloody war when playing bot missions, an onslaught of lasers and rockets. They have tanks, encampments with machine guns, strategic locations like air bases, artillery, and signal jammers. I just prefer fighting these clankers instead of these split lips. Bug divers are out here just killing the local wildlife. Meanwhile, we're defending Earth from child snatchers. Yes, I'm a veteran of the Creek, how could you tell? Now, when the game launched, had you asked me what faction is the biggest threat to humanity, of course I would have said the bots. That was until the end of last year when the Omens of Tyranny update introduced the Illuminate. Despite being thought extinct after the events of Helldivers 1, somehow the Illuminate have returned. Now, we all knew that when the Illuminate made their inevitable return, they would appear in the southern region of the galaxy. However, I think we expected them to appear on the outer edges like the other two factions. However, I don't think we expect them to appear right in the middle of Super Earth territory. No, Schizo Diver, you are not paranoid. The Illuminate were hiding in your walls. Now they're in your skin and you need to pull it off. The Illuminate have a mix of range and melee units, with the Voteless, a zombie-like enemy, making up the bulk of the Illuminate army, and the Overseers acting as a sort of officer type. The Voteless are people who have been abducted by the Illuminate, forcibly spliced with Illuminate DNA, and brainwashed. The only thing that we can do now is put them out of their misery. However, I am a man of efficiency, and it is more efficient to just blow their legs out with a shotgun and leave them crawling around on the floor. Yo, why do the Illuminate Overseers look kinda thick? The Illuminate also have these walkers that look like the tripods from War of the Worlds, and I don't think anyone will correct me when I say that they make probably the coolest noise ever. I'm going to ruin the flow of this video a bit because before we talk about the build up to the Battle of Super Earth, I want to talk about the actual game part of the game. Helldivers is objective based. You pick what planet you want to fight on, and by that you pick the major order planet. You pick an operation area which will have 1 to 3 missions depending on your difficulty. The missions will have optional secondary objectives as well as enemy encampments. And as I mentioned earlier, to aid you in your mission to shove your fist of peace up an alien's ass, you have stratagems that you can call in for support. These stratagems range from being absolutely useless to being absolutely broken. My personal favourite is the collateral damage bombardment. And before you ask the same question I'm going to ask when I get deployed into World War III, yes, this game does have friendly fire, and it's not just a feature, it's a selling point.
I don't think we're gonna get out in time. Oh.
Now, Helldivers 2 is a live service game, but just wait. Before your body, mind and soul recoil from hearing that sentence, let me say that this game does live service right. It launched as a complete game and has had sufficient content updates since then, unlike Anthem. In the first draft of the script, I went on a tangent about bad live service games, but I think just name dropping Anthem gets my point across. Now, all the big game publishers just need to look at Helldivers 2. If you make games like this, live service games won't have a bad rep anymore. or you could just continue doing whatever the fuck this is. The game does have a battle pass. Several, actually. These are called war bonds, and they give you new weapons, armor, and stratagems to use. I don't mind these. The premium currency is found easily in missions, and they don't use psychological manipulation to make you buy them. The war bonds remain available even when new ones come out. Another aspect of being a live service game is that Helldivers has an ongoing narrative. Speaking of which, so when the Illuminate returned, it was like playing a genocidal game of whack-a-mole. Every time we repelled the Illuminate, they just appeared on a different planet. So the Illuminate have hit the second planet. But it wasn't just the Illuminate we had to contend with. A failed operation against the bugs led to the destruction of Meridian and the creation of the Meridian Singularity. And then the black hole began to move, and it was on a direct course to hit Earth. Some planets in the way were sadly destroyed by the black hole. Luckily, the efforts of the Helldivers stopped it in its path. Now, all of these events culminated in and so the true purpose of the Meridian Singularity was revealed. An Illuminate invasion fleet dubbed the Great Host emerged from within and attacked the heart of democracy, the cradle of humanity, Super Earth. It was time to fight. And so the battle for Super Earth began. Usually what happens when battling for a planet is that it'll have a bar, and once that bar fills up or depletes, the battle is over. The Battle of Super Earth was different. It had several bars, and that's how you know shit was getting real. One bar showed the strength of the Great Host, while the other bars represented the status of various megacities around the world. Once the bar of a city depleted, that was it. That city and its people were lost to the Illuminate. Now, we got to pick the city that we fought in, if the devs had opened up that city, that is, and the contribution of completing missions went towards the city bars, and the more Illuminate we killed, the weaker the Great Host became. This was essentially a war of endurance. We had to hold the cities long enough that the Illuminate were too weak to continue their invasion. A little bit off script, but I also want to point out that we got the support of the Democratic Space Station. The space station grants modifiers that help players who are undertaking missions on planets that the station is currently orbiting. One of the modifiers is that the station will deploy eagles to do strafing runs, even if the target of that strafing run is just one singular enemy who is standing right in front of you.
There were only 2 guys.
Now, the reason why my gameplay is quite sparse is because the moment I started recording, my gaming skill dropped to that of an actual game journalist. I mean, like, look at this aim. Is this Polygon's Doom 2016 footage? Now, the new megacities presented new challenges. The tall buildings meant that bombing runs from Eagle 1 or barrages from the Super Destroyer were less effective. Airstrikes could be blocked by buildings. Now, that happens with forest planets, but for the Super Destroyer, it meant that if a building was in the way of an orbital barrage, the destroyer would have to reposition before it fired. Depending on the position, it would be 2 seconds, or in my case, 17 seconds. You may not be able to understand, or maybe you do because TikTok has ruined people's attention span, but when a horde of voteless and flesh mobs are bearing down on you, 17 seconds is a long wait time. Ah yes, the flesh mob, one of the new enemies from the Heart of Democracy updates. They are horrifying. Another new enemy introduced was the Leviathan, a large flying enemy with guns that are long range as well as accurate. I hope you enjoy getting sniped by an enemy you didn't know was there. I did. They're actually kind of cool. Combined with the tall buildings, they are quite a formidable enemy. The battle came down to 2 cities, Equity on Sea and the capital, Prosperity City. Everything was thrown into chaos. The president of Super Earth was assassinated. He made it a heroic last stand against the Illuminate and then transferred power over to the military. The game was review bombed. Oh, that's not part of the narrative, that's just players being stupid. But finally, the battle for Super Earth was won, but at a great cost. Millions of Helldivers lost their lives, an untold number of civilians were killed or abducted. The Illuminate may have been beaten back, but now we have to take time to rebuild and mourn the dead. Nah, fuck that, humanity 2-0. Let's go finish off the survivors. So where do we stand now? Well, after the Battle of Super Earth, the Illuminate went into hiding. The next major order we were given was to contend with the Automatons expansion. After that, the Illuminate did return in little pockets in the southern regions of the galaxy. The next major order was simple: permanently remove the Illuminate from the galaxy. Sadly, we failed this major order, and as a result, the Illuminate now have a permanent foothold within the galaxy. The Battle of Super Earth is the climax and conclusion to the first act of Helldivers 2 narrative. Where the story will go from here, we have absolutely no idea. If I was to make a prediction, however, I would say I think maybe it's going to have something to do with the Terminids. Perhaps the gloom will expand, and we'll either have to venture into the gloom or we'll have to stop its expansion some other way. But Arrowhead Studios have kept the roadmap very close to their chest, so really all we can really do is speculate. Oh, another thing to keep in mind, in Helldivers 1, it's insinuated that the Illuminates are basically fighting against a much greater evil somewhere in the universe. Perhaps some point in the future, this greater evil will make itself known to us. That greater evil will be a fourth faction that we'll have to contend with. And that's the end of the video. I tried to record this outro several times. I always do the outros unscripted, but I usually end up waffling and I don't really like how it sounds. So all I'm just going to say is if you're still here and you enjoyed it, then like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon with another video. Bye.